what am I thinking about today? Creators and critics have always had a strenuous relationship. They are constantly at odds, but when it's all said and done, neither can truly live without the other. Criticism leads to proper in-depth analysis of varying works, and without art, writers would be talking about, I don't know, fruit? How many Rotten Tomatoes is this tomato, eh? While there are several examples of this type of back and forth, a notable one is a recent spat between director Jordan Vogt-Roberts and CinemaSin. For those unfamiliar, CinemaSin is a YouTube channel whose main video series revolves around satirically analyzing films via nitpicks and calling out cliches and tropes.
This log creature waited a full minute to wake up while Jack sat down on him.
Young Joe conveniently takes forever to simply rechamber the weapon when he's later shown to be able to do it very quickly. Also, this tape isn't worn out from 26 years of overuse.
And for those of you who don't know Jordan Vogt-Roberts, he directed Kong Skull Island and has a sweet, sweet beard.
Hey.
The start of the conflict came from Vogt-Roberts taking CinemaSin to task upon the release of their take on Kong Skull Island. Vogt-Roberts went on a Twitter rant calling out the channel's mean-spirited tone towards movies, inaccuracies for the sake of cheap jokes, and an overall shallow critical eye. While I think this back and forth is deserving of a proper debate, the whole thread did make me think about the place channels like CinemaSin have in our entertainment landscape. CinemaSin is only one of many channels that center their works around the satire of other media, and over the past couple years, such channels have become some of the most popular forms of comedy and entertainment among passionate and casual film fans alike. Now, I'm a big advocate that taking jabs at art and entertainment is a healthy form of circulating said works, with parodies and satires growing our familiarity and fondness for things that we would otherwise strictly take seriously. At its best, it can even be cultivated into entertaining works of art themselves. And while plenty of big-time creatives have successfully used such methods, poking fun at movies is a much more personal, communal experience, so good on these guys for finding their niche. But as the digital age has brought upon the ability to produce even more varied shows and films, it does make me raise a brow at the YouTube space, but only slightly. Online platforms in recent years have allowed original works and niche franchises, both of which would otherwise struggle to see the light of day, have the ability to get out there to the masses. So while Netflix and Amazon are known for producing this material, YouTube seems to be the nook of the film fan. There's lots of interesting original work to be found on YouTube. But just as Netflix is likely to produce another Stranger Things, you are very likely to see another popular video dissecting the latest maligned blockbuster and passing that off as their own recreation. Which brings up what I've been pondering. Has criticism gone from strictly being a way to properly analyze art to full-fledged entertainment? I know the channels I've been referencing can be labeled as satire, and while I do think most, if not all of them, take the stance of just having fun, I can't help but think the perception towards them is a little bit muddled. See, in my mind there's a difference between a spoof and a critique, and for the most part that's what these channels are doing, critiquing. The honest trailer videos, while great and operating under the conceit that they are presenting a transparent advertisement,
From the minds behind Snow White and the Huntsman and Transformers 2, 3, and 4? Oh no.
in practice are essentially film reviews themselves. I can personally point to many times I've encountered people who cite the observations made by these channels as either validations of their own critiques or enlightened to new issues that they previously didn't have, and inherently there isn't anything wrong with expanding one's POV via comedy, but it does feel a little weird to treat these videos as proper film criticism, especially when the spirit of the comedy usually taps into that nitpicky fandom mentality that sure makes for fun conversation, but also is not meant to be seen as a do and don't list of filmmaking. But honestly, I can't blame viewers for having this takeaway. These videos do tap into a germ of a truth that tropes and cliches can often be the source of suspect storytelling, and while that can be fun to point out, I'd hardly call it nuanced criticism.
There's nothing in here about technique. There's nothing in here about structure. Nothing here about intention. It's just a bunch of crappy opinions.
What's more is that in this 140 characters clickbait listicle age, people are more than ready to accept such dedicated format without a second thought.
This person is definitely putting a lot more thought into this and making more observations than I ever would, so they must be onto something.
I know this sounds like I'm accusing people of being sheep, but let's be fair, this is the same level of credentials that the laymen apply to Rotten Tomatoes. So essentially what you have is reception based on snark, perpetuating that good films are judged by their more superficial aspects. Is Frozen really any less of a film in its own right because it shares some narrative beats with other movies? Hell, I've heard the criticism that Iron Man and Ant-Man are the same movie simply because they both have bald bad guys and center around a suit. It's this type of admittedly amusing but still lazy assessment that leads us to making generalizations about film, i.e. all superhero, animated, or horror films are all the same based off surface level details, which to me at least has always been a negligent way to treat movies as a whole. But honestly, what sells the way these channels are doing it, other than it's easier for audiences to generalize rather than think critically, is that plain and simple, they truly are entertaining. Let's face it, in-depth analysis is boring, especially to the common person. These channels tune into that fun fan mentality, taking the basics of film taste and making them accessible, taking the medium that has critical credibility but making it simple and sexier. Like I said, the online film community and the progress that it can and has led to for entertainment is something I will always approve of. I know it sounds like I'm down on these guys, but I'm really not. I think certain channels are better than others, definitely. I think Screen Junkies has been great about not resting on their laurels, and How It Should Have Ended is probably the best example of properly juggling spoof and celebration in their videos.
Watch out, here comes my arrow, it flies super fast and kills everyone.
All that said, in the long run, I'm not sure that inundating the general audience to think the way CinemaSin does is the most constructive or healthy way to approach cinema. A form of entertainment that will always be relevant, but let's face it, is becoming more and more disposable to the casual person in the digital age. It's great that film fans have their creative voices heard, but are we celebrating this new age by truly being creative, or are we using it to enable our fan behavior? Because at the end of the day, that's what we are. Fans, consumers. We aren't always going out there to make the movies, the music, the video games, but you can always count on us to enjoy or hate them accordingly. And I just wonder if YouTube has given us a venue to not only do that, but to validate it as equal to the big time creatives. That our passion and pettiness has grown like some sort of symbiote off the backs of others, ready to be rewarded for being critical. And let's face it, even when it's all in good fun, being critical is the gimmick. See, the best film analysis goes into what works, what doesn't, and why for each. The goal is to make you think and appreciate. In online entertainment, the goal is usually fun, and often what's fun is to make sure you can point out what's bad. As I said, it's good to push those buttons, but for an entire spectrum dedicated to mockery to find its home in the most accessible, influential platform in the entire world, again, eyebrow slightly raised.